Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tony Jacopan, and we are on K21 in the series Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility. What are we going to talk about today? Well, pretty simple. It's a key issue. We're going to talk about trust and other intangible in value creation. As you know, trust has become one of the major topics, either for companies, for economy, and even for interpersonal relationship. So, what can we do about it? Well, pretty simple. Right now, when we are talking about the value of a company, most of the time we refer to the visible part of the iceberg. And we forgot that some other elements are truly important, and they are the hidden part of the iceberg, obviously, and they represent a more important part in terms of value creation. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about business ethics, bribery, corruption. This is the reason why one of the principles of the Global Compact is against corruption. We can talk as well about community philanthropy. I don't know if you know it, but right now, one of the major foundations in the world, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, before the donation of Warren Buffett, represented at the financial surface that was superior to the 30 countries with less GDP on a worldwide planet. So imagine, with the donation of Warren Buffett, one of the richest men on earth, what can it mean? What is the problem with community philanthropy? Well, on one end, it can be good when it's done as they're doing it at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Why? Because they focus on education, they focus on aid, but in terms of accountability, it's not always ensured. Remember what happened in the 70s for another 9/11 when there was a coup in Chile, and where some foundation, among other Rockefeller Foundation, approved the coup. I'm not saying it's now the case. Rockefeller Foundation has changed completely its principle right now. You say we're talking about something that happened so many years ago, so many decades ago. Okay. But when there's a change, it has to be acknowledged that association, foundation are not all, and even NGOs are not always as transparent as they should be. Okay, so but they are not the unique one, because when we are talking about corporate governance, even if there are some improvement, because now and for the companies that are listed in the board, at least the remuneration of the top 10, top 20, or even more executive are given. Now, until what extent is it fair that the CEO of a company get 10 million USD a year, and imagine that a clerk gets like 10,000 USD per year? You say, if this man creates this value, no problem. Now, okay. Imagine that if this guy, because we're talking only about wages, we're not talking about stock, we're not talking about other advantages and so on, per diem and so on. Okay, imagine that if this person get 1/10, so 1 million, but I'm not saying that he's not going to have the stock and all the advantages linked with his job. No, I'm saying no. You keep it just decreasing, and this 9 million USD per year are used to hire some more people within the organization. Imagine, not to say that you're going to hire people at the bottom of the pyramid, so 10,000, but imagine that with 9 million you can hire people for an average wage of 30,000 USD. Make the math, and you see that you can hire plenty of people. And above all, it would be normally young people with education and so on, so they've got plenty of needs. They can foster consumption and so on. Meanwhile, right now, these people, well, I don't know if they can really boost consumption. And you say, well, this guy is a communist or whatever. or maybe worse even. No, no, I'm not. What I would say, let's consider someone that cannot be considered as such. JP Morgan, first JP as the original. Well, what did he say? He said that the major scale within a company should be 1 to 25. Do you know what is the scale right now in the listed company? In the top listed company? The scale is 1 up to 400. 1 to 400. Is it saying, can you motivate people? Remuneration is key in motivating people. Okay, you will say you got plenty of other issues. Yes, but to a certain extent, the needs, basic need, and the more sophisticated needs, if we keep on thinking in terms of Maslow pyramid, should be covered as well. So this is the reason why it's really important that in terms of corporate governance, we get some change. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem that we're going in that direction. And this is the reason why employees need to pay. They face always more pressure because in terms of welfare state is going down. So company needs to move up. And here there was an initiative, for instance, by the Danone group to say we need to be sure that all our employees will get more or less the same package and the same healthcare, access to an hospital, etc., just to be sure that it's going to work. It was signed a couple of years ago. Was the first initiative, I think, at the worldwide level to have such a high package. So this is the reason why it's a really good issue. And I hope that if you are in HR working on this, go what they're doing. It will be a good thing. I'm not saying everything is perfect in this company. Sometimes management is extremely hard. But at this point, at least, it's good. Okay, so customer quality, customer satisfaction, really important. The unique problem when we're talking about this, about customer satisfaction, is done ex post. It means that you need to acquire the good just to say if you were happy. If you were not happy and you just stop before the acquisition of the good of the service, nobody will be there. So this is a problem. It's you've got a big bias in favor of the company. So what counts here even more when you're looking at this about trust or what happened in the intangible process is what happened, why did you lose those guys? Environment, really important to not to leave too many pollution to future generation. This is the reason why it's important to find out some new possibility in terms of recycling and so on. And last but not least, relationship with providers should be enhanced. You've got something in this topic that is really important, which is a sustainable value chain and sustainable supply chain. Just to check out that child labor is banned effectively and human rights are respected. That include obviously child rights. In that sense, for instance, there were many problems in emerging countries about the textile industry. So just to mention one, in Bangladesh, there was last year there was an accident in Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, and many companies were involved in it. And the problem is that you say, okay, until what extent is it feasible to control the supply chain? I'm not saying it's easy, it's not. The problem is what can you do just to be sure that these people get a fair proportion of the job. Okay, so now if we look at the element trust barometer in 2014, what can we say? It's a bit to deepen more our analysis in terms of the institutions that are considered as trustworthy or not. So when we're talking about this, just to mention the methodology, you need to be over 35, college educated, earn more than 60K if you're in US, 60K USD, and 40K in euros. So here, number one, NGOs, number two, business, number three, media, and number four, government, done in a major country. So you can see that this is quite new, because in until recently business was last. So what happened? Well, with the recent year, there's some change, and we're going to explain them a little more. We're going to see that first there's a different concept of trust in going to the countries, and you will see that in industrialized countries, the concept concerning trust in business is not as high, and it's the trust in business is higher in emerging countries. This is one of the major differences. So there are already more countries that are involved in it. So here what you can see is that countries that inspire more trust among an informed public, and we're talking about China leading this ranking. So Singapore and India, and you can see neutrals, some other country, and you can see that some countries are improving, Emirates were improving until recently. What will be really interesting is after all the scandals that are linked with the organization of the World Cup, Qatar may be affected highly. So this is something that it's really important. And then you can see on the other end that two countries have suffered a problem of trust, mainly one US and second one France. So pretty interesting to look at it. Now, if we look at the brand country image, sorry for the mistake at this point. So I say brand country image. What can we say? Well, here it's interesting because first maybe to explain future brand methodology. It's a compounded index that takes into consider elements such as legal security. What does it? What is your opinion of this country? Would you invest there? Do you think that it's safe? Would you like to spend some vacation there? Would you invite your own people from this country, etc., etc.? So what is interesting in this ranking is that by position to element ranking is that top countries, almost all of them, are from industrialized countries. And so this is issue one. Issue two, you can see that the BRIC are not leading countries because they've got difficulties in moving forward. Just to look at it, even if Brazil has been, I was just looking for India, but Brazil has been improving substantially from 31 to 28. We'll see that some other countries, India has been moving 23, 29, 42. All this problem with the rape of women and so on have decreased the position of India. I think it will become even worse in the upcoming years. So you can see this is India is not such a great position. China remains stable in terms of perception. So really interesting to see the difference and to show that there is not necessarily a convergence among indicators. And last but not least, I want to look at Russia. Perception of Russia is not as good either. And with what happened recently, despite the organization of the Olympic Games of Sochi, the situation with Ukraine may deteriorate. Even if personally, I think that until now, while we're in mid-June 2014, they've been pretty moderated in the answer. You need to. It's a really complex situation, but for a public that is not informed, it's a complex issue to debate it. Okay, so quite interesting to move on. So if we advance in terms of sector, so we're considering about countries, brand image. Now we're moving down at sector level. What can we say? What sector inspires you more trust? Interesting to consider, it's a technology lead, and banks is still suffer from the subprime crisis. Maybe have some problem. Pharmaceutical were at the bottom during many years due to their policy for the free therapy in the case of AIDS, and you can see that this is an issue that is quite interesting. You say, well, how is it possible that companies in the technology sector are inspire so much trust? Well, it's quite important to look at it because one, they provide new devices, it's great, it's hype and so on, so no doubt about it. But in terms of privacy, you can see that it's becoming always more important, always more relevant, and this is the reason why in the upcoming years it shouldn't be surprising that they suffer a major deterioration. Okay, why? Because as you know, European Union has, due to the scandal of the NSA that was demonstrated by Snowden, where we can see that we've been spied by all institutions and by many companies. So this is a big issue. There's some willingness to create new safe haven, and this is really important to take into consideration that many issues will have to be integrated from the perspective of technological company. Okay, and just to move down after country, sector, companies, what are the best brand? Well, here again, I'm not saying that this should be taken at the only Bible. We've got plenty of ranking, and just to show you one of them, we can see the importance of the major companies. For instance, you can see that many of them are American. If we look, for instance, in the top 20, for instance, you can see American, Korean, Japanese, I just said when it's not American, German, American, French, American, and Japanese. So you can see that the vast majority of the top companies in the world are American, which is logical because it's based on economic leadership, cultural leadership, technological leadership. So it's pretty logical that this happen. Now, interesting to see that in terms of branding, Facebook is not that high in 2013, even if they are in the ranking, but they're only 52. So this is the first point. Second point, sorry, and the other point that is quite interesting to see is that there's only one brand with a Greek flavor, let's say. Here it's Smirnoff. So what does it mean? Well, it means many things. It means that trust is based with a strong capillarity with the customer over time. Capillarity means many contact points. As soon as you're able to do it, well, you can see it, because even if some companies that has more users in the world, Facebook, is not better placed, well, it just shows that it's a matter of time. So trust is linked with time. Okay, so this is it. So what we can say, in order to sum it up, we can say that trust has become, it's a key, it's really important, be it economic, business, and as well among players. Who will you trust? It's important for all stakeholders. In that sense, it has to be acknowledged that the impact of advertising has decreased as such when it's come top down, and what counts now, it's peer recommendation. So in that sense, all the way through which marketing is done has completely changed. It's much more going through virality to make it work. And last but not least, take into consideration that trust is so important. It's really important to adopt an holistic perspective to be sure that all the risks have been taken into consideration, and to keep a posture of integrity. So you can be wrong, it's not a problem, you can recognize your mistake if it's obvious that you're right. Now, when you've done some mistake, it's better to acknowledge it at once, because otherwise it can generate much more turmoil than otherwise. Okay, so I was really happy to be with you for this topic on trust, and hope to see you soon on K2 Born, either on the CSR and sustainability series or on any other topics. Thank you.